I thought it'd be a great opportunity to get somebody up here to talk to us that has done a bunch of slow trolling in a lot of different areas of the country with a lot of different partners, and has had some success, had some pretty good success with it. A lot of people think slow trolling, no, I don't think a lot of people, a few people think slow trolling is boring or slow trolling is cheating, and those are both people that have never done it right, because at the end of an 8-hour tournament, I'm whooped anyway. But if I've been trolling for 8 hours, I'm beat. I mean, there's nothing. That is a hard way to fish. It is a very tough and very intense way to fish, and it can make the difference between a big fat goose egg and actually putting some good fish in the boat some days. So we're really glad Jeff has volunteered to talk to us about this subject. We got a lot of requests from the members at our last survey to have some more information about slow trolling, and we think Jeff is the best one to give it to us. So, Jeff, tell us everything you know and you think you know about slow trolling.
It's more about thinking now. All right, so unlike how Paul usually fishes his one pole and his one rod and two baits, slow trolling's a whole different ball game. Give me a second, I'll set something up here. So as Jadon said, I had the opportunity to fish with a guy by the name of Dan Mueller. He's the pro staff with Bobby Garland as well. He's running the boat wrap series with Crappie Masters. We fished Alabama River. It was in March, I guess it was, and 2-day tournament, their Alabama State Championship. We took 4th place. We were slow trolling. We were back in some creeks he knows, and just like when I fished with Mackie the national championship on the Alabama River, and they draw that lake up and down feet in a day. On Thursday we fished. It was that level pool. Got there Friday. They were drawing water out, and we had to go to a different area. Start fishing Saturday. Down a foot, and throughout the day they're raising it right back up. So one of the things that he knew about that lake and what areas to fish when it goes rises up and down. Slow trolled the whole time. I also fished with him in Reelfoot Lake a couple weeks ago. We didn't do so well. We had found fish on Thursday. I had a 205 on Thursday slow trolling, which is huge. We had probably close to 11 pounds. That weight would have won us a tournament and big fish. Saturday come along, winds are blowing 20 mile an hour straight into our area, and even with the heaviest boat, 20 mile an hour winds, you just can't hold still. We tried to fish it for a while. We got a couple quick bites, but we couldn't hold it, so we had to go to plan B, and plan B didn't quite work. We weighed 6 fish. We fell 1 short, and the total weight was 293. 6 fish. If I'd had 7, I'd have beat that 610. There is no limit of size on crappie on there. But I had one of the weirdest things happen to me ever slow trolling. It was Friday pre-fishing. We knew rain was coming in. It was getting cloudy, no lightning, no thunder. And we're running 14-foot B&M Pro Staff trolling rods. I lifted my rod up, and I got shocked. I was like, dang, you put it down like if you're in your house and you got static electricity. So I thought maybe I caught up in the trolling motor and hit the line. Picked it back up again, did the same thing. I hollered at Dan, I said, hey, did you hear that? And he says, no, what? I said, pick your rod up. He did saying it, tick, 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 dropped it down. There was so much static electricity in the air pre-storm that was actually shocking us through the foam handles. It was bizarre. And then, of course, he gets a fish on. And you can't raise that rod 2 feet up in the air. So, like, what do we do? So, he puts it in the water and drags it around, picked the line up. About 10 minutes later, it quit raining, and that was it. There was other people that it happened to everybody on the lake. It just wasn't us. I mean, there was guys that had a video of it that you could actually see the sparks coming off the rod handles. So that, like I said, I've had rods hum on me when I was, with the, I think it was Lake of the Pines with storms around, but there's nothing. I mean, it was bizarre. So like I said, Cedar Creek, we with Chris, we ended up third. We slow troll as much as we could in the morning till that wind kicked up and kicked us out of the area. And I imagine Palestine, if the wind stays down, we're gonna try to do that the same. We're starting to find a lot of success in it. When I first started doing this, I started off with a 10-foot B&M or a 10-foot pro angler rod, one hook, one weight, and that was the easiest thing to start with. So basically, when I started doing the slow trolling, this was my setup: a 10-footer. I got this is a 3/4 ounce weight on there, 2-way swivel, and a snell hook. This is the best way to get started slow trolling with a short rod because you got more control over it. You got to get used to the boat control before you start to go to longer rods. Right now, I'm fishing with the 14-foot B&M Pro Staff trolling rods. So that's what I currently run right now. This would be this one here. And I don't know if anybody's seen the articles, and Ronnie and Steve had an article. So this is that's the 16-footer. Here's the 14-footer. So Ronnie and Steve said, as you start to learn, you get to the 10-footer. Once you get that, you go to the 14-footer. They start fishing with 18-footers. The reason that they use the longer rods, and I think J-Ton can attest to this because he's seen this in Grenada, the further you get out away from that boat, the more bites you'll get. But as you go to these longer rods, I think he said from a 10 to 14-foot rod, you get like 30% more bites, but it's 50% harder to land that fish. Same with if you go to the 16-foot rod. I've got a 16-foot Pro Staff trolling rod here as well that I've started to play with a little bit. I actually bought it for doing crankbait pulling, but I was starting to use it. It's another 50% harder to land those fish, but it gets you out further away.
Is that mainly for shallow water or for deep water?
Both.
15 foot?
Yeah. And in the wintertime, if I'm trolling like Levon in 20, 30 foot of water, I'll go back to the B&M or the 10-footers, the Pro Angler 10-footers, because you're not really worried about getting away from the boat. Those Pro Anglers, they got plenty of power from those fish like on Levon. When you got those 2-pound fish at the wintertime, I'd definitely go back to using the 10-footers. But as I go shallower, I like those longer rods. They do have, they're a little flimsy, and that's why, as Ed said, Pro Anglers are working on the 14 and 16-foot rods, which, I did troll with them on Sunday for a while. Their 14-footer is very close to what I'm using. The 16-footer is, I'm not really used them much, but I'm getting some input, and he's getting some inputs from other guys. So I'm really anxious for them to come out with these new rods because I think they're going to be very good. So that's the rods that I use. Now the other next thing is reels. If you can see up here, I got bait casters and spin. I started using the bait casters, and I'll use bait casters on the shorter rods. I'm starting to like the spinning reels. You don't need anything good, nothing. You just need something to hold line. I know Chris he prefers using the bait caster, so when we're trolling, I'm using spin cast, he's using bait cast. That's kind of just personal preference, what you're doing with that. The line that I'm using. So some of the stuff if I'm just doing a straight jig, a single jig, shallow water, I'm using probably a 6-pound test line. If I'm using anything a little deeper or medium, I'll go to a 10-pound line, but I'm using 6-pound leader lines. So I'll go in and I'll put a D-clamp on it, and then as I got here, so I'm tying up a whole bunch of rigs, and I'm using these tackle buddies, and I'll just wrap these all up. So if I break off, I pull it off, I unsnap that D-ring, throw the what's left of the rig on the bottom of the boat or in a thin container so I can tie them up, and I just unravel one of those and go. I've been using the Fluorotex from Lake Fork Tackle, and I really like that line. So I'm going to probably be going to all Fluorotex line here real soon. It's just I've been using the Suffix and some of the cheaper. I think I got some Vicious on there, but I'm finding that Fluorotex has got less memory on there, and it's just a tougher line. So that's probably going to be the line I'll be moving to with that. Now, as far as setup, so I use the 6-pound test line, but when everybody always double minnow rigs. So that's just your Captain Coleman rig. Very simple to set up. But what I've been actually doing, switched to something a little different. So I'm fishing, I'll put a 1/2 ounce weight on there. And what I do on the top hook is I'll get a snelled hook for the top line. And then on the bottom, I'm tying a 1/16 ounce jig. And that jig is anything from the, yeah, of course, now I'm going to tie this up. Is anything from the Moglo jig heads. I've been starting to use a lot of Roadrunner heads. Rockport Rattlers is another jig head I'm using a lot. And I'm actually trying to do a little bit of the some hair jigs and stuff. So when I first start trolling, I'll put on a whole bunch of different stuff to see what they like. And then on the jig heads, of course I'm running mostly Mogla or Bobby Garland baits, and I'm either using the Baby Shad, the 2 or 3 inch slab slayers, the minnow minders, the slab doctors, or even the strollers they got. So it just depends. Find out what they want, and I'll do for killer. So here's one of the rigs I've got set up. So this is a true turn red hook. So I just take the snell and I just loop it through one of the eyes and through the eye, and that's done. I know a lot of people like to tie their own, but this is really easy and quick. And I'll do about a, I don't know, arm length line of 6-pound test line. I'll tie it onto the 3-way. I'll take a 1/2 ounce weight, go about halfway up the line, wrap it around 3 or 4 times so it doesn't move. And on the bottom I'll do my 16th ounce jig head. Now if it's windy or in current, we'll go up to an 1/8 ounce head. And I've been using heavier weights, but as you get further and better at slow trolling, you go to the lighter weights. So I've been primarily using 1/2 ounce now. If it's as occasionally we'll go to a 3/4 ounce. It's just the heavier weights as you're learning, you can detect the bites a little better. The other thing that I'll use is I'll throw on some Rocky Top tube jigs. I like using those quite a bit. So that's a lot of the rig setups that I use. Yes?
You're putting a snell hook on top, are you putting a jig or a minnow there?
Minnow. I always run minnow on top, and then on the bottom I'm using some type of jig. And 99% of the time I'm tipping that with a minnow too.
The snell is to get it to stand out?
Yeah. Now if you don't use a snell, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go maybe a 2 or 4 pound difference. Maybe 2 pound is about as much as I want to go. If you put a little heavier line on the top snell than you do on the bottom, it'll help that stand out just a little bit better. If you've got the same weight, that it'll have that same bend in there. There's times I'll probably run 6 pound or run 10 pound on the top hook. It just keeps that out away from that line.
If you put something like a solid body Rocky Top or something on that snell hook,
What's up?
travel just about like a jig.
Yeah, you can do that too. A lot of times when we were running, I'll run 2 minnow hooks and run all bodies on it. And mostly those I'll use the Rocky Tops on that stuff.
What's that?
So a lot of times I'll just run 2 crappie hooks or 2 straight hooks, and then if we're looking for a jig bite, I'll just put crappie baits on them instead of putting minnows. I could run Baby Shad or the Rocky Tops or even some on the minnow hook. Yeah, that works too. The thing is, you just got to find what they like and what their preference is for the day. So the other thing, so that's kind of much the rods and the bait and the tackle. So the other stuff that you need, of course, is the rod holders. I got 2 that I use up here. I've got the, of course, Ed's Be Readies. These are very adjustable, and I also have the Tight Locks. These are the Black Widow series. Both of these work very well. I prefer this when I'm fishing deeper. These I like. I'm not as good. I know Paul and I have talked about that. I myself have a problem getting a rod out of this quickly, and I just don't have that on here. This gives me a little bit, because when I'm fishing Grenada last year in the spring, I think I missed so many fish because I couldn't get the rod out quick enough with this. And there's other stuff in there, but I'm finding that when I'm using shallower water, I like this rod holder is better. Once again, it's all preference, what you get used to. Rod holders, trolling motor. You need a good trolling motor. Variable speed is probably key to what I like right now. I'm finding myself, instead of constantly bumping that trolling motor on and off, I got a 4-Trex and I can run from 0 to 100. I find that speed where I'm going where the speed I want to stay at, and I leave it on constant and just go. And you're just kind of steering along. If you find that right speed, you never have to change it. And of course, if you get hung up or any of that kind of stuff, you stop it, or if you catch some fish, you just dial it down to off. And then as you drift back, then you turn it back on and get moving again. It's just a lot easier. Now, if you're on an area where you've run into a lot of brush piles, you may not want to use constant speed, because once you get into that brush pile close to that, you want to stop and let it drift up and then drift back. So that's one of the things that I feel is important. It's helped me. Seats. You need some type of double down seats up front, especially if you're running 2 people. My boat, I've got the 2 pedestal in there, but they're too far back for me, so I still run a double down base seat. If you got a boat that's set up with 2 pedestals, that always works good. Be creative. I mean, I see people that bring coolers on their boat and they'll sit on coolers, or heck, I think I've seen people with lawn chairs and stuff. I don't know if I'd lose a lawn chair. I'd definitely be in the water with one of those. But be creative. If it's, I've seen those where they've got a single post and those poles slide around. There's all kinds of double seats.
You're fishing with a partner, 2 up front. How many rods are y'all put out?
8. If I'm fishing by myself, and I'll probably try and run 6, but with Chris and I on the boat, we'll run 8 rods.
8.
And it's if you get a big fish on, man, if you can get him tangled up. Chris had one on Sunday. We were out fishing, and I think he tangled all 4 rods, because I had a wad of line like this that I think it took me 10 minutes to.
I've done it about twice. 4 by myself.
Yeah.
Ran into a school of sand bass. I'm still getting them.
Yeah. And here again, once you start off, you don't want to run 6. You start off with 3 or 4, and as you get better at it, start adding more rods. And it's a different technique. It's something you just can't go out and do it. I know the first time I did it, I was with Patrick Villegas, I think, on the first Cedar Creek championship we had. We said, let's try some trolling, and we were back in some cove, and there was a big marker buoy out there, I think no wake, and I think we hooked that about 6 times before we decided that this isn't for us, this tournament. So it's something you just can't go and do. You've got to just go and do it, and be patient. You got to be patient. It takes time to learn how to do it. So it's spider rigging, slow trolling, commercial fishing, cheating, whatever it is. I mean, it's called a bunch of different things, but it's all about techniques. Also, they got slow troll, which is basically creeping along real slow. And there's times when, especially in the wintertime, you want to try and keep it as still as possible, and that's what they like. Grenada, it's the most bizarre thing. If you haven't fished Grenada, you've got to one time. You're running in 20 foot of water, about a mile an hour, and your line's 5 foot deep. And these fish just come and just knock the heck out of it. I mean, you thought your rod's gone. And sometimes they like it fast. One of the things that we up in Reelfoot, we did what's called a zigzag. They like it when it comes along, and zigzag is you're just basically going back and forth across the channel. And it seems like every time you took that curve back, it just took that swing, and they would just knock it. So you got to vary your techniques on it. Brush piles is the other one I talked about. So what we did on Cedar Creek, we had I don't know, what did we have, Chris? 6 or 7 brush piles marked in about a 75-yard stretch. We just kept going from one to the other, and until the wind blew us off, and that's what we did to get to the brush pile. And as we got to it, we slowed down a little bit and backed off. And generally, when we got closer, hung up in one, we got a fish. So there's all kinds of different techniques you can use for it as well.
What's the shallowest water to do that?
Well, we were on Levon there. I think I caught a fish in 18 inches of water using a 14-foot rod. So we were right on an edge. We were fishing one of the dams back there. I was fishing anywhere from probably 18 inches to about 2 foot, and he was in about the 5 or 6 foot range, and I'm picking fish up in the shallow, and he was picking fish up on the deeper end, and it was a mixture. I caught more males than he did. He caught the females that were staging, and that's the other thing. I mean, you're not always at one depth, so you got to make sure you know where you're trolling and what you're trolling for. If you're trying to fish a ledge, you have to try and mark that ledge first so you know what path to go. And are they on top of the ledge, below the ledge, on the ledge? Sometimes like we were doing on Sunday, I was fishing shallow, he was fishing a little deeper because we were running that ledge. So one of the things that when you're the bite that you'll get, and it varies too. There's times that this fish will come and they'll just knock that rod, and that line will go slack, and you'll know it. There's times that as I've gotten used more into doing it, I'm watching that rod tip a lot more, because there's a lot of times when that tip's just going like this, and you're thinking that's a minnow. It's not the minnow. There's a fish on there. I've gotten so much better over this past year of detecting those bites and increased catch, because I'm watching that rod tip. And here again, if you're running 6 rods, it's paying attention to all those 6. I mean, you're constantly going back and forth and watching it, looking for those subtle changes on those rods. So it's very important when you set these out that you try and get those rod tips all at the same level. I run, try to go anywhere from 6 to 18 inches off the water, depending how fast we're going, and try and get all those rod tips at the same length, because you're looking for those differences. And the other thing, as you're going along, if you get hung up on a brush pile or a stick or a rock, that line will start just slowly going under. And you need to catch those early, because if that rod's really lines way back there, the chances of you getting it out, you're having to back that boat up. But if you see that line just starting to go back, you pick that rod up. First of all, check, see if there's weight on there for a fish. If not, if you get that quick enough and pull it backwards, I don't know, 7 out of 10 times you'll get it loose. Or the other thing that we'll do is, if you're quick enough, take that rod and you put it underneath there and you bring it all the way back, and then you get it out that way. And there's times no matter what you do, that rig is the lakes. But that's the other thing. You got to pay attention. It's just not for everyone. Sometimes those fish, you'll think they'll slowly take it down, or you'll see it swimming off the side. There's other times. One of the weirdest things I saw, we were probably trolling up on Alabama River. We were going about 0.5 miles an hour, and actually these fish would start biting, and they would travel with that rod, which I wouldn't have thought that he did. But you can see him. You're just waiting for that really to start getting some action on that rod tip, and they would follow it for about 10 feet or so before they really take that minnow in. So it just takes practice knowing when to get that bite and when to actually get that hook.
Sometimes the rod tip just slowly goes up.
Yeah, sometimes too. If they'll bring that up. So you got to pay attention to every little detail. This is good for somebody that's ADD, because you're constantly looking, and maybe that's why I like it, because I'm always wanting to do something. For some people it's boring, but it's a whole nother challenge, especially if you get into it when they're on. I mean, it's no more exciting when you've got 8 rods out there and you got fish on 3 of them, or you've got a fish and you got one line in the boat and you got another one, especially in a tournament, and you're just throwing them back there and let them tangle up, because when you're fishing tournaments, you want to get those in the boat. And that's why with these things, you snip that off and you just put another one on, and you don't have to worry about retying as you go. So one of the things, I don't know, we don't all have the fish gods following us around like Paul and Gary. I don't know what they do, how they do it. He must go to church every night. Well, cheat, yeah. But I'm finding, of trying to get an edge on everybody else, and I think that's kind of helped Chris and I this year, where where we're at this year in the standings, because there's a few little things that I I've done and we've done and tried this year that's made a difference. And some of them you think, what, why, or how. So, of course, one of my sponsors is Rod Socks, and here's some of them over here that until I started putting these things on the trolling rods, when you've got 8 rods sitting on the side of your boat, running down the water, running, those things get tangled up. And it takes you forever to get them untangled, especially if they are. So we're using Rod Socks, and right now we only got 8 footers as the longest they've got. So we put those Rod Socks on the end. So when we're ready to fish, those rods just come right apart. We pull that off, and we're ready to put them in. And that's given us not an advantage fishing; it's given us more fishing time. So that's one of the things that we've found. I talked about the Rockport rattlers. These are little rattles. The other thing that we have is the Bobby Garland's got crappie rattles. So this is kind of one other thing that, this imitates shad sounds. So we've been using more rattles, and I think that's been helping. The other one is, and I don't know if you all can hear it. I turned this on earlier. It's called a hydrowave, and I know Ronnie's had one in his office. It's chirping. Let me turn this volume up on this. So I've been fishing with this for about 4 or 5 months now. So basically this was something that was designed for bass fishermen. And Kevin Van Dam was the first, the big guy on this. And what we're finding is, especially Livingston was our first testimony of this. Chris and I were fishing a stretch of about 100 yards trolling one of the creeks. We took a pass in the morning. We caught, 5 or 6 fish, 7 fish. Took another pass, picked a couple more. Did 2 more passes, didn't pick up a fish. Turned this thing on. Next pass we caught 4 fish, and next pass we caught 2 more fish. So I think what this does is, and in the Alabama River we've seen it also when I was fishing with Dan, is we're fishing a creek area, and as we were going down about 30 yards in front of us, the shad would start popping, and as soon as we get past, they would quit. And it took us a while to figure out what was happening. This imitates shad sounds. It's got like 6 different sounds. There's a schooling one and a finesse shad, so just like shad. What this does is it kind of does 2 things. One, it excites those shad and gets them moving around instead of just laying around. And the other one, it also gets the fish's attention. Gene Eisman, who's one of the guys that devised this, he said they put it in one of the Bass Pro's fishing tanks one time. They said, and they turned it on one end, they said within about 5 minutes, all the fish in the tank moved onto that side and just stood there staring. They could hear it. They knew they were supposed to be shad, but they couldn't find them. So, this thing works. And Chris and I, even on Cedar Creek, we were fishing a structure that we went through, and we picked a few fish up. It seemed to slow down. We turned this thing on, and we picked up 2 or 3 more fish. Coincidence? Could be, but that's something that I believe in right now. It's helped us. One of the other things that Bobby Garland's coming out with called Mogo Slab Jam, which is a scent, and it's something that I think it's going to come out in July. No, that's why I got that bottle in this box. It's actually a glow-in-the-dark shad smell with glitter in it. And I've got, this is a gel, and I also got a spray. So I think you all, Paul, did you tell the club about what you did with the fish, or was that somewhere else? When you catch a first fish of the day.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so yeah, I guess I was at a meeting, or some of y'all heard. So Paul gave out a secret that first fish of the day, what he does, he goes and, I don't want to say bad words about it, but he rubs the fish all over his hands. He's getting his human scent away, and it's got a fish smell. This is kind of the same thing. We've got a spray bottle that first thing we do in the morning, we'll spray it and rub it on our hands. This thing is actually a really stiff gel. We'll put it on the baits, and they'll stay on for hours. It's got glitter and it's glow in the dark. This stuff is phenomenal. I think they're going to start selling this, I believe, in July. That's something else that we've been using to kind of get an edge. And the other thing that I've experienced, and now power poles is just found out this week I'm going to be one of their pro staff members as well. They're not as much as the power poles for shallow water fishing, for anchoring is good, but what they have is what's called drift paddles. And anybody that's thrown out chains or buckets or drift socks, that's a thing of the past. So on these paddles, it almost looks like a big oar on the bottom of them that you attach during the day. And we use these up when we fished with Dan in a Reelfoot Lake. When you're, instead of throwing out chains, you just drop these in the water. And it just slows you way down. And so in a few months, I'll be getting some of those. And the drift paddles will actually start using them. And I've experienced them, and they're really cool stuff. And when you get really sophisticated, what I saw in the catalogs, so if you're fishing a dam and the wind's blowing angled in, you can actually set these at an angle to where when you're going against it, it'll actually push your boat parallel. I'm not an engineer, so I'll probably hit a couple walls before I can figure out those angles, or have to rely on some app to tell me what angles to put them on. But that's something that'll help me out, because I know in my crestliner right today, if I get a little bit of wind, I'm blowing all over the place. So that's something else that seems to give me an edge as well. So it's spider rigging's a whole new game. Ed is from Be Ready. He's got some pamphlets up here and brochures about spider rigging, gives you some basic ideas and tips and all that stuff. So you're welcome to come up and get some of these. Take a look at that. The rods are up there. You can take a look at what Pro Angler's coming out with, and there's going to be some changes to those. And I got some of the 14 and 16 foot rods and 10 foot rods. So you're all welcome to take a look and listen. So that's spider rigging. Question?
Jeff, let's talk about location. See, I've never done this before. Throw my boat in, I put my rods out. Where do I go?
What time of the year?
Well, let's go out in winter time. Then let's go.
Winter time is down by the dam. Down by the dam. It depends what lake it is.
Winter, and now we're in spring.
Spring transition, I'll be, if it's pre-spawn, I'll be looking out areas outside of coves. If it's spawning, I'm in the coves. Now, it's going to depend on what kind of lake you're fishing too. If you're fishing standing timber, forget it. There ain't no way to troll that. Not that I've tried yet. But underground timber, this is deadly for that. Yeah. I mean, you look at what some of the stuff they fish. They'll fish wintertime on, I think, Reelfoot on the upper lake where the lily pads are. They'll fish 2 or 3 foot of water in the wintertime, trolling through dead lily pads. And I couldn't imagine that. I mean, you're constantly at that point, you're talking about paying attention. I mean, you're always doing this constantly. I mean, because as you're going through, you're just going right over top of those obstacles.
Now, the Reelfoot's not a real deep lake.
No, it'll take a long, I don't know, somebody had to pay me to go fish that lake again. I mean, you can only idle. I mean, it's full of stumps and trees. And
We're in summer now.
Summer, I'll be back probably deeper. Yeah, you're always looking for points. You're looking for points, breaks, river channels, brush piles, in deeper water. So, bridges.
Look for bait, balls of bait.
Yeah.
You want to try to find that when you can troll. I mean, you're going to be trolling deeper in the winter, but when you find that bait, you'll find some fish go along with it.
Yeah.
I find that true with any time of year.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. Just like if you go and fish Lake of the Pines in the winter. Instead of doing this, you can sit there and do this. So pretty much anywhere where you're doing that kind of stuff, you can sure as well spider rig.
So in August in Lavon, you're going to spider rig points?
I'll probably be doing crankbaits then.
Long life?
Yeah. I don't know, we'll see. I haven't tried it yet. I'm not usually pushing, but I don't know. It depends if we can fish it in August. It may be 15 feet low. We may be fishing Louisville. Yeah. Yeah, we can turn it into a tubing tournament. But yeah, it's locating the bait, time of year, and fishing the area. Anything else?
You're ultrasonic. You said you generally started fishing first and you fish through it and then you turn that on afterwards?
Yep. Afterwards.
After you had a lull?
Yep.
Did you leave it on? I mean,
You don't?
do you leave it on a lot, I guess, while you're there? I mean, all the time? Or you
No.
turn it on and off? Or?
Turn it on and off. So actually what I have on here right now, I think it's on continuous. There's a couple different settings. I mean, there's settings that there's finesse shad, there's schooling shad, there's frenzy shad, there's shiners. I know Bass World just came out with crawfish and something else that, especially one of the things that Kevin Van Dam was told how he uses this when he's bass fishing. He'll fish an area, then he'll start using it. He'll get whatever. He'll start using this, and he'll start with a low volume finesse, and then he'll turn it up as a schooling. And the very last thing he goes, there's a frenzy, which basically means that there's a school of fish that's being attacked. And if you got the frenzy on it, it's the weirdest thing. You'll just hear it like it is, but a lot faster, and all of a sudden you hear, "Ow!" And that's to simulate a bass eating a shad. So these bass think, man, somebody's getting some food, and I'm going to go get to it. He said, I don't know what they said, 6 times out of 10 before he leaves that area, he'll pick up one more fish on that frenzy before he leaves. So what we'll do, and we haven't really tried a lot with brush piles. Now, I guess we did at Cedar Creek and stuff, or that structure. We'll fish an area first, and if we know there's fish there, that was one of the questions I think Paul Hicks asked Ronnie Capps one time. What do you do if you know there's fish there? Well, what do you do? One of the things that I'm going to do, I'm going to turn this sucker on and see. I mean, they're there. Something's got to trigger them, and I think that I could use that to trigger some bites.
So is that transducer, is it very deep in the water?
Right now, so what I have here is a portable. I mean, I've got one on my trolling motor, and I also have one here that's got 14 foot of cable on it. How much time do I got? That I can lower 14 foot down. So if I'm going to try it on some deep brush piles, to actually be able to lower it down to the brush pile. So that's something that I'm going to try. I don't know. We're still testing it, but I've proven it already to myself.
So if I got a recording of that, would it work?
If you can get an underwater speaker, it might. I do know that we're working with him to sponsor the club, and I'm not sure what deal they're going to offer us, maybe some type of rebate or something. Anybody wants to purchase them, but we're something that we're working on right now.